Okay, stop. Hello everybody. My name is Vladimir ZIVKOVIC, and I will be talking about building immersion in HOPA games. But before I start, a little about myself. I work for a company called Apex Entertainment. In this year alone, we will have 16 HOPA titles published, and we employ over 200 people. We take making HOPA games seriously. So we think twice before adding any feature into the game or changing any aspect of the game. So it's our bread and butter. We can't screw it up. We need to make it look good, make it be good. So yeah, I know what you're thinking. So how does this beautiful young man get a job at such a nice company? So the company is, in our company there's a lot of talented people, and without them we wouldn't be able to create the worlds that we are creating today. So yeah, enough about me, enough about our company. Next, before we start talk about building immersion in HOPA games, let's talk about the genre of HOPA games a bit and immersion in general. So what does HOPA stand for? It's hidden object puzzle adventure. Very simple. So the video game art form, like any other media, has its ups and downs, has its movements. A genre can appear out of nowhere. It can combine two or more genres to become something else, or it can evolve from something to become something else entirely. But one genre is, I'll take one genre out of that big pool of genres, that's the most influential genre to the HOPA genre. It's the adventure game genre. A lot of genres. So adventure games are a mix of storytelling, puzzle solving, and exploration that changed forever the way people looked at games. So, as you see here, we have the Deja Vu game. That's the first. That's a black and white one. It's the first-person shooter adventure game out there. And if we look at the adventure games in the past, we have great games like Zork, like Secret of Monkey Island, Myst, and all that. And the main thing we have to remember is that they proved that games can tell a story, can tell a great story, can tell a better story than a book or a movie. The next type of games are the hidden object games. So not HOPA games, but hidden object games. Those games are familiar to anyone who has ever read the Highlights magazine or played a game of I Spy with their friends or read that Where's Waldo book in the waiting room at the dentist's office or something like that. So the objective of the game is to find an object in a picture that by examining every single detail of the image. Pretty simple. Next we have puzzle games. So puzzle games were here for a long time. They're here even before electronic entertainment even existed. And we still use puzzle games today a lot as standalone puzzle games and as puzzle games inside of AAA titles like, I don't know, for instance, BioShock. You have those annoying puzzle games that you have when you hack the computers or something like that. And some of the most popular games today are puzzle games, like, for instance, Candy Crush. It has more players than China has people. So, so we have three genres. We have the hidden object genre, the puzzle genre, and the adventure genre. Now, combining those genres is like the mighty Voltron. You have all those mecha cats, and you combine them into something much more superior. You get the HOPA game. So, in 2005, three guys at Big Fish Studios, I don't know their names, I'm sorry if they're here maybe, saw the potential in the childish hidden object games, said, let's put an interesting story there, and let's put some puzzles, and voila! They made a game that was appealing to older audiences. So that was the first HOPA game ever. The name of the game was Mystery Case Files Huntsville. And because of that game, I'm here today, and our company is here where it is. So thank you guys, thank you three guys. So now let's talk about immersion a bit. First, let's talk about immersion in general, and then adding immersion to puzzle games. You'll see why that's important later on. So, what is immersion? Bam! You just got immersed. So immersion is a metaphor. To get submerged into something, to get wrapped up in a world, and to get lost inside that fictional world in that book or that movie or something like that. People want to be submerged. It's not a thing they fight. You pick up a book or you watch a movie, not to say like, no, I don't want to believe this. No, I mean, you're going to have a bad time if you want to do that. And I feel sorry for you. So you pick up that book and the movie, you want to be lost. You want to let that book, that movie, that piece of art take you away to a far land where everything is more interesting than in the mundane life. Let's talk about immersion in puzzle games. Do puzzle games need immersion? Well, they don't. A lot of puzzle games have no immersion at all. They're just puzzle games. So you never played a game of Bejeweled or Candy Crush and said like, whoa, whoa, it's like I'm actually there. The candy, it's falling from the sky. No, you just play the game and you don't care. And here's a nice example. See, we're playing Tetris and we think, it's good, but needs more side quests. Yeah, that's the key to the Tetris game being better. No, nobody saw that. But just because we can make a game without immersion doesn't mean the game won't benefit from it. So let's take a look at a great example like Puzzle Quest. It's a great game. It has a very simple match 3 mechanic, and it has a beautiful story. It has interesting characters, and it's very addictive. Okay. Oh no, back. Let's talk about the types of immersion we have. So Ernest Adams divides them into spatial immersion, the feeling that we are there in that world. We get that immersion from visuals, from sound, from smell, from feel, from Oculus Rift and whatnot. Morpheus, if that's a thing. Next, we have narrative immersion. It's the immersion we get similar when we're reading a book. We empathize with the characters. We feel for them. We try to live out their adventures, something like that. Strategic immersion, it's the experience the player gets when he chooses action from a wide variety of actions. It's similar to the feeling we get when we're playing chess and we're owning somebody in it. Next is tactical immersion. Has much to do with skill. It's largely this kind of immersion is in online multiplayer games or shooters where you headshot that alien for the 5th time and you feel great. So yeah. Next, let's see where immersion comes from. It comes from graphics, sound, game mechanics, and narrative. Now we'll look through these sources and talk about how we can build up immersion with them or how we can break them. So next we have graphics. A lot of people think that graphics are the most important aspect of the immersion building roll call. Let's call it that. And if the game is photorealistic, it feels real, and therefore it's immersive and fun. Well, that's not true. And I think that that's because that thought is widely spread because in the last 15 years, all of the games companies, all the major game companies were competing on whose game engine has more lens flares and particles and something like that. And J.J. Abrams is in it. So let's not talk about how photorealistic graphic is not important, but how graphics are, how good graphics are. So the graphics are the first thing we see when we open a game. If the graphics are pleasing and soothing, our brain will start to tune into those visuals, and we will be more open to, I don't know, complicated mechanics or something like that. If the game has weird, surreal graphics or something like that, it can be hard for us to let ourselves go in that game. So next, we have, what does this mean for HOPA? HOPA games are casual games. And there's no need to strain the player's eyes with abstract forms or Dali-esque environments. I mean, the player just wants to have fun, just like girls. HOPA art, I would define HOPA art as, so now this is just my opinion, you don't have to listen to me. I would define it as caricatured, augmented cinematic realism. It's a word I made up, TM. So, caricatured. Why caricatured? All the main characteristics are there. They're there to help you instantly recognize what's important in the scene. Why is it augmented? Because often the color, the lighting, the mood is cranked up to 11 to emphasize the atmosphere, the time of day, the time of year, and all that. Next, what was the next word I said? I said, cinematic. Yeah. Why is it cinematic? Because all the scenes are one-frame shots, and there's no moving camera there. So it's you have the you can put much more thought in every scene, just like in the movies where, I don't know, the lighting artist thinks about the scene a lot and all that. But in a 3D shooter, it's much more hard to get that cinematic feel because the player controls the camera. You know, you can make that scene look beautiful, but if the player looks at the floor, he will see the texture, and that's it. The scene is ugly. Nobody cares about if there was like 15 artists working on it. Just kidding. That's just my opinion. So, next, the first-person point of view. The first-person point of view is very important for HOPA games. So with that, we build spatial immersion and narrative immersion. So we build spatial immersion when we show the player that he's there, that he's in that environment, that he is in that world in a way. We build up narrative immersion by giving the player the chance to walk in somebody else's boots, to be the main character, to look through his eyes, to interact with the scene like he is there in that scene. Now, perfect. Breaking immersion with the first-person camera. It's very easy. I see a lot of young HOPA developers making that mistake. They put a lot of thought in the visuals. They make a breathtaking scene, but the camera is wrong. The camera is 10 meters high. And that it can't work. It breaks spatial and narrative immersion. It breaks spatial immersion because you are no longer the player in the scene. You are no longer wrapped in the environment. You're just a guy or girl looking at a beautiful picture. It's beautiful. It looks pretty, but it doesn't build immersion at all. So why does it break narrative immersion? Because I'm no longer that hero in that scene. I am a bird maybe or something like that looking at the scene, and that's just something that breaks immersion pretty easily. So next, talk about music and sound. More about sound, not that much about music. In today's mobile gaming and people playing casual games in their offices and all that, sound is a bit put to the side because a lot of people turn off sound and they don't want to listen to the sound design that the artist had put in lots of hours in or something like that. But that doesn't mean it's not important. Sound is a very powerful tool when building immersion. So the sound can build up a good spatial immersion. It needs to complement the scene because hidden object games want to sell you the idea that you're there. You need a good atmospheric sound that will complement everything the player sees on screen. Next, what not to do when designing sound. I mean, a lot of sound designers here, I guess, and they know what not to do, but I keep seeing that in some games where the UI and the HUD sound is done wrong. People see HOPA games and think, okay, these are just generic sounds. Let's make them arcade-like. That's not good. The sound needs to complement what the player is doing. It needs to give him that good strategic feel when he picks up that item, that he is picking up that item. That it can't be louder than anything else. It can be in a different timeline or something like that. It's not, you play the old arcade games like Golden Axe or something like that, and you have those weird out-of-place sounds when you finish a level or something like that, but that's a different thing. There's not that much of the emphasis like you are there. You just want to kill skeletons. So yeah. Next, we have mechanics. Mechanics are the rules that the game gives the player. The player learns those rules early on in the game through tutorials, and they give him the ability to interact with the world. The tutorial tells him, what he can and can't do. Can he shoot that demon? Can he jump over a building? Or can he pick up a key and use a key? I mean, but those rules need to be straightforward and need to be very clear. So in HOPA games, the mechanics are pretty simple. They took this mechanic from the adventure genre. You pick up an item and you use an item, and something happens. So that's fairly simple. Next, we have puzzle games, also taken from puzzle games and taken from adventure games. The puzzle need to be nicely distributed through the game. So the puzzle, you can't have like a lock-picking puzzle on a bottle of water or something like that. That will break spatial and narrative immersion to the player, and that just doesn't make sense. The player needs to be rewarded for the solving of the puzzle. So it could be on a door or something like that to give the player some more exploration challenges or something like that. Next, we have the hidden object scene. The hidden object scene is a puzzle of its own. You have a nice list of objects you have to find, and one of the objects is the one you need. So a lot of, when we started doing hidden object games, HOPA games, sorry. When we started doing HOPA games, it was weird. That mechanic was very weird to me. It was like, what, you pick up 12 items and you only get one? I mean, that's not how it works. That's not how an adventure game works. We were always a bit against them. We tried not to use them as much, but then I started to realize that picking up 12 items and getting only one useful is the same as getting 10 bullets in your head in Call of Duty and staying alive. I mean, that's just a thing of the game that you say, okay, this is real in the game. This is okay in the game. This is not something that defies logic. So if it's within the logic of the game, it's cool. And yeah, as you see, I put some nice examples of a hidden object game. Yeah, also the hidden object puzzles are marked with sparkles in the scene. I know if any of you guys were like, why are there sparkles in the scene? Because they give the player the idea that in that corner of the scene, there are a lot of hoarded trash stuff that you can pick through and find the item you need. So when you open a chest and there's like a lot of sparkles because of the gold, because this is one man's trash is another man's treasure. So yeah. Okay, breaking immersion with mechanics. The player needs feedback. The player needs accurate feedback when doing something, when he cuts a rope, when he opens a door, something like that. He needs visual feedback, or without it, he won't. The immersion will be broken. The game will just remind the player that this is just a piece of software you're controlling, not a world that you're living in. And also, with feedback, hand in hand goes consistency. The gameplay mechanics need to be consistent. So if we use an item and something happens, we need to be consistent about it. We can't just make the player, oh, you use that item here and nothing will happen ever again. So no, that doesn't work. Or see how Homer has an inconsistent game mechanic in his own world. Next, we have narrative. So narrative has existed a long time before games were here. It has existed in books and movies, and it has the gist of pulling people in pretty good. So as there are ways of delivering narrative in books, there are also ways in delivering narrative in games. Some ways are better, some ways are worse, but there are some standard ways when delivering narrative in games that were adopted by the game development industry. So the thing about narrative is that it's hard to pinpoint. Like, you can say the narrative comes from, I don't know, the cinematics. The narrative comes from the dialogue. Well, yeah, but the narrative also comes from the art. The narrative also comes from the sound. So, like, take a look at games like Limbo. You have that black and white world, and that black and white world is telling you that you are all alone, that this world is hostile. It's not pleasant for you to be in. And it's telling a story of its own. The next thing, we have sound as a narrative bringer. Like in the Amnesia games, you hear your heart rate, you hear your breathing, and it gives you the idea that something horrible is going to happen. Somebody's going to eat you. Next, using narrative the wrong way. the one mistake I see in a lot of HOPA games that even we as a company make a lot is giving the protagonist the ability to speak. This is just my opinion, but I find games that don't have a speaking protagonist much more engaging and much more immersive. So look at games like Half-Life 2 and Portal 2 or Portal 1 or any of the games. The protagonist doesn't speak at all. And it's great. You can put yourself in that position, and there's nothing weird about it. And then, I mean, it's not impossible to make a game where the protagonists speak, but for me, it's very annoying to have a voice that's constantly reminding me that that's not me, that I'm just a puppeteer controlling somebody, that I'm looking through his eyes. I'm not that person. The next thing, see Johnny Depp, he's beautiful. Yeah, that's it, just kidding. The next thing that breaks immersion is how players, how the game delivers narrative to the player. If we, for instance, have an intro scene where we see Johnny Depp, this is from the Pirates of the Caribbean movie, where we see Johnny Depp like killing somebody, and then we start the game, and 2 minutes in the game, Johnny Depp tells us, "Help me find the killer." But we already know that he's the killer. I mean, we as the person playing the game know it, but the player character doesn't know it. And that's not good. Then we can never be that player, because our knowledge is not the same as the knowledge of the player character. And the player character can't know anything more than we can. So that's the next one. Yeah. See, when we find it out, we know it. So the best solution for this is when Johnny Depp tells you, "Help me find the character," you just uninstall the game. Because you destroyed that world, and Johnny Depp will never be free again. And you feel good about yourself. And people that get easily immersed in games think like that, even if that sounds very strange. And wrapping up. I hope this helps some of the future HOPA game developers out there to make better games, to make more immersive games, and games that deliver better narrative. I think that HOPA games haven't reached their peak yet, so I think there's a chance that we will see our Mona Lisa of HOPA games soon, and I can't wait to see it. I just hope that Apex as a company makes that. And that's it. Have a great Casual Connect. No questions. I know nothing. I only answer to girls. Just kidding.
Does my long hair count as girl?
Yes.
Thank you.
You're still going to be an exception.
Sorry for my T-shirt. Right. My question is, sorry, I've got sore throat, so.
Okay, no problem.
Anyway, how often do you use non-HOPA games as role models for your titles? And which genres are those?
I don't know what other people in our company use, but me personally, I use Valve games a lot. Because Valve games are perfect for delivering narrative, and every first-person game out there, you can use Legends of Grimrock. You can use anything that's first-person that has a silent protagonist and that has heavy narrative to it. So I don't think it's a good idea to use modern adventure games like the Telltale ones, because they're heavy on dialogue and all that, and they have a different way of immersing people, and I'm not an expert on it. I just know that we have finished like 20 HOPA games, and we have figured out some things so that we often use.
Yeah, thanks.